Hey everybody, I'm Suzanne Barrett Justis, and today we're going to paint a cardinal in dogwood. So here's the actual piece. This is the completed piece, and I'm going to take you from start to finish on this piece, and be sure to stick with me till the end because I'm going to go over a little bit about some of the details that go into, you know, really getting in there close and getting all the details. And that's what makes a painting fun, right? So at least it does for me. It's one of the many things. So again, thanks for being here. If you are my subscribers, again, as always, thank you so much. And if you're not, please consider subscribing. And if you subscribe, go ahead and ring the bell. That way you'll know when the next video comes out. So without further ado, let's jump into this cardinal piece. Okay, this video, we're going to use an 8x8 gessoed panel that's, it's just got a little bit of texture on it. Not as smooth as I normally do, but it's a slightly textured, medium textured gessoed panel, 8x8. And then this over here, as far as our colors here, we're gonna be doing a cardinal. So the colors I've squirted out, we've got a permanent alizarin crimson. That's cadmium red medium, vermilion, and I have ivory black. I have ultramarine blue, titanium white. I have Shiva green. It's Shiva green citron in the Richeson color line, and this is burnt umber. And oh my goodness, what is that one? It is brown pink. Okay, so these are our colors. Now I'm going to do a cardinal in a dogwood tree because dogwoods and cardinals are North Carolina's state bird and tree. And I figured, you know what? I've got to get some pieces ready to go to one of the galleries in North Carolina. So I thought, let's go ahead and jump into this little cardinal and dogwood tree painting. Okay, I'm starting with just a wash, and I'm using a rosemary number 5 ivory filbert here. And after just taking and doing the wash, I've just dipped my paintbrush in a little paint thinner, and I'm basically just taking the paint off so I can see the shape of the cardinal coming into focus. And I'm just undercutting everything with a little bit of just a little bit of a darker wash of paint, and just forming my bird. And then I will, once I'm satisfied with the actual shape of the bird, then I'll start to just do a real loose blocking in. Again, I am not using a lot of paint. You can see how transparent it is. It's very, very thin, very much a wash. And I'm just carving out the shape of the bird. For me, doing a wipeout is probably one of the best ways to start almost any painting of, you know, like something of structure. Because I'm not committed, I can make all kinds of mistakes here and wipe it off, add more paint. It's not a big deal. I'm not really committed at this point. So I'm using a little bit of Alizarin Crimson from my cool red here, and I'm putting in the shadows and putting in just the dark areas of the bird. Now, you know, I'm still processing this in my head. I'm looking at my reference and just trying to get this part down. Now I am switching over to the Cadmium Red, which is my hot red, and just blocking in around the bird. You'll see, this is actually coming into focus. Now you can actually see a cardinal. This is, again, very little paint was being used here. Now I also have to kind of block out and figure out where all these little flowers are going, all these little dogwood flowers. So again, I'm still conceptualizing the actual composition for the piece. If you know me, you'll know that I rarely actually do a whole lot of sketching out. I just kind of let myself feel my way through a painting, and it seems to work okay. So I am cutting in where I think the flowers are going, so I'm actually painting the negative space. And I'm just kind of going with a green background because, one, the green will make the red of that cardinal pop. I love playing complementary colors off of each other. So here's just another fun example of way I can do that. And yeah, so I'm just kind of blocking in around everything, and I'm starting to feel the piece. So I strategically put a dogwood in an area where, because I kind of was running the bird's tail off the canvas, and I didn't want to do that. So to avoid you seeing that, the viewer of the painting seeing the actual where I ran the tail off the panel, I just, I just hide it with the dogwood blossom, right? Clever. Okay, I'm going to use this is a Rosemary 278 series brush. It's just a flat, natural hair brush, and it helps me just kind of soften up some of the brush strokes. My paint's still not very thick yet, so it does make it a little bit hard to actually remove the brush strokes. The substrate that I'm working on actually is a slightly textured, which is kind of unusual for me. I probably, if truth be known, ordered them by accident, but it's working and I'm getting it all in here. Okay, I'm switching to a Shiraz Pointed Round by Rosemary. It's actually a compliment brush. They've given me this brush. Funny thing is, I think it's a pointed round. Sometimes I think it's a rigger. Not really sure, but it's an awesome brush. And so I will leave the link to the Shiraz line of brushes here in the description of this video, because I have been known to paint, well, if you watched my last video, you saw that I was able to paint the entire bird that I was working on with just this single brush. But I'm just getting in some of the detail. It's going in. And if I pick up a little bit of the black, I gotta wipe off that brush. And that doesn't look like much, but trust me here. Now, so I'm going to actually be moving quite a bit of that off here. I may have to fudge for a bit. I'm going to try to take some of this paint off, actually. Right here. I'm taking paint thinner. And actually trying to remove some of that paint. And you can see it's kind of coming off. See, paintbrushes are good for lots of things, not just putting paint on, but taking paint off. As I said, I don't always get it right the first time. Now I'm going to grab some of Cadmium Red. Going in a little heavy. that. Going in with a little Alizarin Crimson right underneath it. Grab some of the black. Bring it down a little bit more. Okay, now he's starting to look a little more cardinal-y. Okay, I'm starting to feel a little bit better. But I've got a lot of tweaking to do. If you get nothing right on a bird, you gotta get their bill right. You have to get their bill right, because that's one of their, you know, that's what makes them so unique. And how, you know, this animal cracks seeds, and for goodness sakes, Darwin did his whole theories of evolution based on the bills of beaks, right? So you gotta get it right. And I'll get this part right here. All right, we're still working with this little pointed straws brush, and you can see that a lot of the details going in, and a lot of what we're seeing as detail is really just switching between the cool and the warm colors of the cadmium and the alizarin crimson. Now I'm filling in some of the areas. You can see I keep plumping out his chest just a little bit more. I've brought his little bib down a little bit also, and you're starting to see where his eye is going, and I'm getting a little bit more thick. I'm laying the paint down a little thicker now at this point. So you can see I'm committing now. I'm actually committed to this painting. Now you'll listen in the background, you're going to hear the sound of cardinals. And if you listen like right now, here you go. That is the song of a male cardinal. So if you're from pretty much any place in North America, at least on the eastern side, you know, we're all familiar with that sound. The cardinal is a very, very common bird at bird feeders, especially in my neck of the woods. And it seems like I have, every year, it seems like there's more and more cardinals in my backyard. Now, the color that I mixed to do the wings, obviously, is a different color than the rest of the body. And I am using the pink brown with white and a little bit of ivory black. So I've made basically a tone of the pink brown, and it's working really well. Now I've made a shade of the alizarin crimson with the ivory black, and so you can see where I'm going in dark here in some of these areas. That's basically what I've done, is using just ivory black and alizarin crimson, and I'm just defining the wings a little bit more, and you can see it's coming together. I am still using the this little Shiraz pointed round, and it's really able to get in there and do the work that I needed to do. I am going to try something. I'm going in with a, this is a 1/4 inch ivory dagger. And I've got, you can see the load is just on the edge. I'm gonna try to cut in these wing feathers. And there is a slight curve, and you can see, perfect, okay. Yeah, there's just something about that, right? I'm gonna go ahead and make that dark so I can go back and put that in. just a tiny bit. We're going to work around some of this area here. Try to put some feathers in right here. Now I'm going to add some more detail. I'm using the 1/4 inch ivory dagger again, and I'm just doing, just like I did before with the black. Using Ivory Black, I'm going back in and doing the highlights on each of the primary wing feathers. And I can actually do a little blending with that same brush. Now I've already switched brushes. I'm using the Shiraz pointed round, and I'm adding in more of the highlights, and you know, I just keep carving away, chipping away at this bird, and we're getting closer and closer. You know, I do like the detail, right? So, and I'm just, you know, if you're conscious, if you look at the way I'm actually using that brush stroke, I'm going with the way that the feathers would go. Now, I can't emphasize that enough. I know for folks who like to do, you know, if you're doing animals and you have fur or feather or scales or, you know, whatever, you should always go in the direction. The brush stroke should always go in the direction that the fur or feathers go. So you'll see that it's I'm not going side to side here. I'm actually going, even if it's a solid mass of color, I'm still going to go in the direction that the feathers are going. Okay, so you know, I'm just, you know, adding more, looks like I'm putting a little bit more cadmium in right there. I'm putting the shadow of that crest. And so that, you know, that shadow of the crest is with the Alizarin Crimson. And I don't, you know, I'm always trying to make sure that I don't have values too close. So I'm changing the value here. Some of that green, I can't help it. And I may actually run that right to the edge and then run the red into it. So I have a it'll make sense in a minute. Again, because I have this, I'll do that. I may darken a little bit of that flower behind the bird. Just grab a little tiny bit of brown. Creating contrast and blurring the edge here. and get some of the highlights in. I'm using a combination of titanium white and King's Blue. And I'm gonna go ahead and hit the very outsides right here. This little bird just kind of, and I'm even kind of dotting them in like doing little tiny feathers. Remember, I always have to be really conscious of my close values here, so I may end up changing some of this in the back. And I'm just using a very, very little stroke. And I am using that little pointed, it's one of the Shiraz brushes, and I really need to find out from Rosemary which one they sent me as a compliment, because it acts like a pointed round, but it could be a rigger, not really sure. I'll find out for you guys. But it's doing a great job. It's doing everything I'm asking it to do, quite frankly. Right here, I'm gonna make a little bit of a, that looks good. We're getting close to the end on this piece. I do have to finish the flowers, and I'm suggesting that these are just little light hair, you know, not hairs, but feathers, obviously. And I'm gonna look to see if there's any other places where you have a little bit of that. I'm adding more and more of the darker values in here, just kind of, you know, firming it up where that would fall into, where the shadow would be on the bird. Now you can notice I still haven't done any legs yet, right? Those will come. But yeah, this is, I have to tell you, I'm digging this piece. It's not a very big piece, right? It's an 8x8, but it's really a fun little piece. And so anytime I can get more contrast, you know I'm grabbing for it, right? So here you see I'm just kind of doing the shadow just like I was on the bird. I have to do that also on the stick, and all the light must fall in the same place. So if I have shadow under my bird, well, I gotta have shadow under my stick. So that's what I'm kind of getting in here, and then putting in the highlights, and I know that we don't normally have a blue stick, but bear with me, I will be adding some brown to it here in just a bit. No problemo. Putting the detail in the actual stick is fun, okay, I know it, but making sure the stick has little bumps and twigs and nubs, and because I paint on all the sides, I've got to make sure I continue my picture along the edges. Even though this particular painting will go into a floater frame, you know, those little details, they're still visible if somebody's really looking at it, and I'm hoping that whomever this piece appeals to, they'll appreciate those little fine details. Okay, so I'm getting some legs in here, and I'm just going in with this pink brown color and going to get the basic shape in, and then all the fun's getting ready to happen, because, you know, bird feet. All right, maybe that'll help. Yes. Okay. So here we have bird feet. other foot that kind of comes around here, a little toe. Okay, I gotta go back in and put the dark values. So I'm just going in with Ivory Black and going in, you know, pretty tight, deep here. And I'm still using the same brush, right? I do like when I can use one good brush that does a lot of the work for me. Okay, UPS, is he bringing me a package? Nope. We're expecting a Chewy delivery. I'm expecting some socks, you know. I like when I get packages. And Singer likes it when he gets his packages too, because that means he's getting dog food. All right, I'm being a little premature in putting this nail in because I still have a lot of background to do here. And we're Now there will be a lot of, you know, I have to think of where the light's falling on these feet, right? I'm just gonna go ahead and make a nail there. And okay, hopefully I'm not being too premature here. I am going to use a lighter value of the original color that I made and start putting this in a little bit. I need a darker one too, closer to his body. I'm going to take King's Blue and white and just keep it on the very tip of the brush, just like that, okay? And it's better off to just drop your paint and reload than it is to try to keep squeezing the last little bit of paint out of your brush by pressing harder. So I keep going back and reloading the brush, okay? Now, of course, I stop breathing when I'm doing a little detail. So when I stop talking, it's because I'm not breathing, and for some reason, I just don't breathe when I'm doing detail. I guess I need to learn how to work through that, huh? All right, I'll be coming back to that little leg in a minute. Okay, this foot here. It's almost, okay, it's a little lighter here. See how it immediately mixes. So it's better for me to just drop the paint, let the tip of that brush do the work. Leave it, don't overblend. That's one of the hardest things to for any artist, and especially new artists, to, you know, we want to overblend. I gotta mix that, I've gotta, don't, you know. The same thing I'm telling my students all the time about leave it, I tell myself constantly. Do I always listen? Nope. Do my students always listen? Nope. But it's okay. We're human, we wanna mix, we wanna blend. Try not to all the time. That's, all right, so I keep reloading. I'm also trying to keep mind of what the architecture, if you will, of a leg looks like. And I'm just gonna have his foot kind of tucked in. I'm not gonna give him a lot of leg. That's about as much leg as he's getting from me today. I have changed my, you know, from my reference a little bit, so you know that sometimes I don't, like I said, I'm somewhat familiar with the structure that a bird has, and I use that to my advantage. I'm that girl who picks up dead birds. I photograph them. Sometimes I just sit them on a board and paint them alla prima. You know, I'll just do an alla prima piece. There's a piece here in my studio. Funny, it's not sold yet. I don't understand that I did of a finch. Oh no, not a finch, a thrush that unfortunately had hit the window, as birds often do, and I did this painting of this bird, and it's you know, paintings of dead birds don't appeal to everybody. I know, I don't get it, but I have it here. Okay, I'm gonna go back and hit a little bit more onto my, I'm probably gonna be pretty happy with those feet. I may actually take some titanium white and hit them again a little bit, but I'm okay with it looking the way it does right this minute. Put a little bit more of this blue in here. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Okay, let's see where else. I keep, you know, I know I'm gonna have to work on a lot of some of, you know, just some other areas. Let's back out a little bit. Here's these flowers. Okay, now I gotta return to some of the background. And I've just put a little bit of linseed oil down, just kind of mushing it around a little bit. I suggest use a brush. This is one of those do as I say, not as I do things. I do use my fingers quite a bit, but really, you really shouldn't. Okay, I'm putting in more and more detail into the dogwood flowers without putting a lot of detail in. Of course, the ones that I'm working on right now are in the background or behind the bird, a little bit further out. So I still want to keep the edges soft, still not exactly a whole lot of white yet. And yeah, so I'm going in a little close so you can see that you got to get the actual flowers that's in the bracts of the dogwood blossoms, right? And I'm also putting in the branches and, you know, just making it a little more twiggy. And I'm using here, the color I'm using here, if you look up at the top, I'm going in for the pink brown that I had, and highlighting everything now with a little bit of titanium white. And keep in mind where the shadows would lie. And I'm just kind of moving around, seeing where I might need a stick. And here I'm putting in a little leaf. And usually when the flowers are blooming, there's not a lot of leaves, or if there are, they're very small. They're not very big leaves yet on the dogwood. So I'm just kind of, you know, I can use that brush to undercut and clean up that little leaf to make it stand out. And, you know, I can load the brush so that I just have the paint at the very tip. And you can see I can add the little detailing even in the little twigs and branches. So this is the fun stuff, right? This is what's fun. And I'm going in with a larger brush now. It is a rosemary, it's an eclipse filbert. And I need something wider so I can start to lay down some paint on the dogwood flowers that are closest to us. And you know, I'm kind of working around my stick. Kind of got the cart before the horse, so to speak, or the stick before the flower. And I'm now going back in and painting behind it. I'm putting the little red touches that are on the dogwood blossoms, symbolizing the blood of Christ, right? If you know the story of the dogwood tree. And so I've got to get that in there. Okay, so we're getting the shadows too. This is my strategically placed blossom that's blocking the tail that I sort of ran off the substrate a little bit. Hey, no problem. We can just, you know, when you do that, yeah, just put something in front of it and see if you can't fix it. But anyhow, it works. And so I'm just getting the details here in this little dogwood blossom. And I'm using a little bit of the Shiva Green Citron. That is the Richeson line of paint. And I'm putting in the shadow that the little blossom creates. And so I'm working my way up from that flower, just, you know, from the background to the foreground, even in the blossom itself, and suggesting another leaf. But it's all coming together. We're getting so close. I can feel it. I can feel it. Ultramarine, actually it was titanium white, not ultramarine blue. So I'm just kind of, you know, you can see here I'm getting a little impasto, which is okay. I generally keep that for the foreground anyway. I usually have my lighter values are a little bit heavier, and I save that for the last. I'm just doing some of the detail in this one little blossom, and you can see there's a lot of different colors in here to make this happen. And yeah, so I'm just kind of rolling with it here. It's coming together. I'm still using the little pointed straws here and highlighting the edges. You know, we're conscious of where the light's coming from. That seems to stand reason where I'm putting the color. And yeah, getting this little blossom together, and before you know it, we will be finished. We are so close. And if you stuck with me this long, stay to the end because we're almost there. And I will go over, I'll really give you a really tight angle so you can really see all the interesting strokes. Being very careful not to get into your flowers there too much. Okay, does that make sense? I need to do a little bit more detail on this guy. Again, using the combination of Shiva Green and Titanium White. Just like before, you're probably only going to see the tops or the round parts here. You're looking down at them on a weird angle. Alright guys, I think we're there. Alright, I'll look and see if I need some highlights. Like I see some highlights that need to be in here. Going in with the, oh, there it is. That's the color I was looking for. Let me back it out a little bit. Let's see here. It's a little bit too pink. I'm going to put a little green in that. That'll tone it down a little bit. You know, you don't have to do the white everywhere. You think you might have caught the light. Alright guys, I'm going to look at this for just a minute and decide if I need any place else that needs to have any highlights, and otherwise I think I might be done. Sometimes that's all you have to do is just kind of look, and I'm taking a little bit of titanium white. You know, look how impasto I'm going on there, pretty thick, hitting little edges like the tops of these twigs. And if I want to leave that paint just a little thick, that's okay. That impasto work does create that dimensional aspect that I like. You know, you can't use it everywhere. It's kind of like a little goes a long way. Or I should say I don't. If it suits you, hey, knock yourself out. I will just generally put it in just places that I think it's important. Remember, the other thing I need to go back and look at is values. So like here, too close in value. I'm going to go in with just a little bit of white and hit some little areas on top of these feet. Makes sense to me. Same here. Let the brush do the work. Don't put any pressure on the brush, and you'll find out that it works great if you just let the brush do the work. And again, I'm not breathing. Stop talking. It's because I'm not breathing. Okay. There we go. That makes sense. Okay, guys, I think we're there. I might just put a little bit more of this on the top of that peak. And I think we just did it. I think we have it done. So I'm going to look and make sure that I don't have any loose ends on some of my background paint. Like here, it could be a little bit, you know, a little bit more intense than I have it. If I can, oops, white in there. Come back in here. And, you know, if I can help create contrast, and you know that's me, I'm going to do it. I don't know. I'm happy with it. I think I'm just going to leave it alone. And there, folks, I think we have a completed piece. Let me get you in closer to look at it. All right, so you can see we've got, you know, the detail that I wanted to put into the bird itself, his little feet, and in the flowers, the dogwood tree. Obviously, you can see the palette here. It's a mess, but we remember where everything was in the beginning. Obviously, we have our Shiva Green here. We had the raw umber. You kind of come up through the palette. We had the Alizarin Crimson, the pink brown, and this became a lot of the colors of the bird itself. But we used it in the dogwood as well. We have the Cadmium Red, and that was always the hot places, like this and like this. We used a lot of it, but it got, you know, pulled down with the cool version, which was your Alizarin Crimson. You can tell I really used very little, if any, of the Vermillion, but you know, you don't know. I put it down because I thought I might need it. Ivory Black. This was Sap Green. We had Ultramarine Blue, King's Blue. I had my titanium white. I had some grays that I was using initially when I was putting the dogwoods in, but ultimately I think this worked out pretty good. So here you have the cardinal. Okay, I've turned the light off so you can see some of the I think you can see the values a little bit better. You can see where I went a little bit more impasto with the cadmium red here and kept the cooler shadow, you know, underneath the chin on the with the alizarin crimson. So you know, you have to do a little bit of overlap on some of these colors. So I'm going to pull you in closer so you can see what I'm talking about. It's really evident right here in the part of the head. You can see that intense cad red running up to where the shadow of the alizarin crimson is in the crest. And that's really how you're going to establish the form. And if you really pull in close here, you can see that even the highlights have, you know, have a little bit of, I guess I should use something other than my pinky for a pointer, but you can see right in here, there is a lot of overlap with the CAD on top of the highlights. I think it makes sense when you really look at it close. And I tell people, when you look at something just on, whether you're looking on a book or on the computer or any, you know, you're looking at art in a two-dimensional form, it's really hard to be able to see the nuances of a painting. And that's why I recommend to anybody to go to art museums, go to you know, art galleries, go see art outside of the internet and magazines and books. You got to, because that's where you really learn to appreciate what goes into making art and seeing that, you know what, everybody has their own technique, everybody has, you know, makes mistakes, and it's I don't know, it's validating as an artist to really look at some of the art of the masters and see, oh, I see what he did there, or oh, I see what she was thinking, because I do the same thing sometimes. And I don't know, it's awesome. So be sure when you can, and you can do it safely. I know we're still in the middle of a pandemic, but do go to art galleries and art museums and look at art in person. There you are. It finished. finished up nicely. And again, of course, I showed you in the beginning what I did, but I wanted you to be able to get in close and really check it out. This was a fun piece to do for me. Of course, I love birds, and anybody who knows me knows I love birds, but I love all wildlife. And so, yeah, this was a fun piece to do, the dogwoods and the cardinals. The cardinals are kind of one of my favorites. So there you have it. If you have any questions whatsoever about anything I covered today, whether it's the palette, technique, anything, just leave it in the comments section. Know that I will leave several links in the description as far as what brushes I'm using. And yeah, this was fun. So again, thanks so much. If you are my subscribers, thank you so much. If you're not, please consider subscribing and be sure to ring the bell. That way you'll know exactly when the next one comes out. And be sure to watch the next video, the one that's going to come up here usually I'll have one that pops up here that tells you to watch. And of course, at the closing, you'll see that there will be some videos coming up. I've got one that is on its way of just some plein air. And yeah, and you'll actually get to see some of the other birds I painted. If you're curious about the indigo bunting, be sure to check out this video right here. And yeah, so we'll make sure that you know how to do all kinds of birds. But if you have a suggestion on something you'd like to see, some other form of wildlife or landscape or portrait work, leave me a comment, let me know what you want to see, and I'll get to it, I promise, and we'll do that next time. So again, from Kingsport, Tennessee, thanks so much for joining me today. Until next time, bye.